Without further ado, we're going to film this as well, if that's all right. Over to you, وليد.
Thank you, Chris. Good afternoon. My paper or seminar today is on the Muslim Arab character as a terrorist in contemporary fiction. And this contemporary fiction could be American and could be Arab fiction. I will deal with the three novels. First one is by an Arab-American writer, Layla Halabi. She is mainly from Jordan. Her novel is on A Promised Land, was published in 2007. And another Pakistani-American writer, Mohsin Hamid, his novel The Reluctant Fundamentalist, published in 2007. And the last novel is by John Updike, the American writer, Terrorist. In the abstract, just to give you a very brief note about the abstract, there are many writers, novelists who deal with the 9/11 attacks. And there are some writers who deal with terrorism before the attacks. And there are writers who deal with terrorism after the attacks. So we have what we call the before and the after binary. I mean the understanding of terrorism before the 9/11 attacks and after the 9/11 attacks. After the 9/11 attacks, writers wrote on what is called the repercussions of, or the aftermath of 9/11 on the American people, specifically in America, and how they were, I mean the American people, society were affected by these repercussions and aftermath. And one of these aftermaths is the idea of trauma and the idea of the downfall of the supremacy of America as a superpower or the most important power in the world. I argue here that the political administration in the US and the mainstream media played a role, though not exclusively responsible for racializing the post-9/11 moment and highlighting the anti-Muslim sentiments. The research will focus on how these two outlets, the American administration and the media, affected the viewpoint of society, how they see Arabs and Muslims in these Before that, I'd like to define terrorism and then define jihad, just to give brief notes on the difference between the two. Terrorism, mainly it is defined mainly by experts. It started by the French Revolution, and the coinage of the word terrorism started by Edmund Burke in 1795 to describe the horrific techniques used by the French government after the revolution. And it means that they used just like despotic, I mean very ruthless power against the people, against the civilians and innocent people at that time. We have to bear in mind that there is no one agreed definition, universal definition for the term terrorism, whether in the East or in the West or in the world. There is another definition of terrorism, which is by Alex Wolff: the deliberate use of violence against innocent people to impose fear for political purposes. So, use of violence to create fear. For what? For the purposes of certain, maybe the reasons behind the use of that violence, or use of violence, or threat to create fear, is for certain objectives. It could be political and it could be social reasons. Another definition, it is by Walter and Todd Sandler: the premeditated use or threat of use. So it couldn't be only the use of violence, it could be the threat to use, just like maybe verbal threat, as we will see in the novels. The threat of violence by individuals or groups to obtain political or social objectives. So nearly the same definition. I think we need to distinguish between terrorism and jihad, because jihad, as I have read many researches about the word jihad, the social viewpoint in the West specifically, they consider jihad as a holy war. And this entails a kind of pejorative meaning or violent meaning. But in jihad, the meaning of jihad, specifically in Islam, there are two kinds of jihad. Jihad starts mainly, the greater jihad, the big jihad starts with the self. Man, he fights his evil forces, okay, his evil impulses, and this fighting is a kind of greater jihad. If he is victorious over these bad, evil impulses, he will be just like an angel. He will be a good man and kind. And this is the greater jihad, started from the inside, from the interior of the self. Whereas the lesser jihad, which is less important, is, for example, when the country is invaded by a force from abroad. So man must do what? He must defend himself, first of all, the self, and then the family, and then the property, his house and money and this stuff, and then he must defend the country. And this is the lesser jihad. So jihad is different from the word terrorism, okay, in these two senses. And here I have brought certain meanings. In his books, Readings, the Muslim Mind, Hassan Hafid defines jihad as striving. And this striving, as I have said, started from the inside. Or it could be striving against the enemies, the opponents. What is stated in the Quran about jihad? In pilgrimage verses, Allah, God, states that permission, jihad means permission to take arms, to fight. God given to those against whom war is made. For example, if this country, there are forces coming from outside the country to invade it, this means that God gives you the what? The power to fight against these forces. Because you are threatened. Because they have been wronged. Just like the invasion will cause wrong over innocent people. It will lead to victims. And Allah indeed has power to help those victims. Those who have been driven out of their homes unjustly. This is, I have taken it from a quote from the Quran. In this context, jihad is not terrorism because it entails jihad, fighting oneself against the internal evil lurking inside him, greater jihad, starting with the self. Or it means defending human life, property, possessions, wealth, money, and land. And this is called lesser jihad. The aim of jihad is to preserve the human life and the human properties and possessions. It is not using violence against innocent people. This is the meaning of jihad. On the other hand, terrorism means violence. It uses violent means to gain certain objectives, as I have said at the beginning. Either these objectives political or social. Sometimes they are personal. They don't belong to group. It is a violation of human rights, creating fear and terror. Fiction and terrorism. Before 9/11, we have many examples. Dostoevsky's The Demons, a novel written about, I would say, it is a novel written about the conflict between England and the other superpowers in the world, just like Russia. What is fiction? Fiction is a representation of life and a depiction of life. Life is a stage of conflicts, and terrorism in our life, whether before 9/11 or after 9/11, life is filled with conflicts, and these conflicts could be internal inside one's society or external against the enemies, against the superpowers. One of the problematic conflicts in our life is the existence of terrorism and terrorist groups, which threaten human life and the human rights and the human values. This is why, what is the objective, the role of fiction, is to show from where terrorism comes, why people become terrorists, what are the motivations of these terrorists, what they intend to do. And this can be depicted and revealed in different novels. These are two different examples: Joseph Conrad's Secret Agent and Fyodor Dostoevsky's The Demons. Two different novels dealing with the pre-9/11 kind of terrorism, which means that either it is with the English-Russian conflict or the American-Russian conflict, but it is not superpower or worldly or global conflict as the ones happened after 9/11. Characteristics of early terrorism fiction before 9/11. This early representation deal with politics, non-military intervention, anarchism, nihilism, espionage as main themes. So there are certain sides that we may call in this fiction terrorist. For example, kidnapping, killing inside one's country through the espionage, through spies. And in these two fictions we see that there are Russian agents, spies in, for example, America or in England, killing English or American people for certain political reasons. In addition, these representations reveal political conflicts between certain states or superpowers and not between the West and East. And this conflict between the West and East, it is mainly revealed, depicted extensively after 9/11, and specifically by the political administration in the USA. They show society and the world that there is a battle between the West and East, between Christianity and Islam, because on 9/11 the attackers are Muslims, or between Islam and Christianity, or Islam and capitalism. The presented conflicts are not global or worldly, but limited in scope and involves world powers, Britain, Russia, and America. It doesn't focus on the spectacular or visual nature of terrorism. The fiction written before 9/11, for example, does not show us people killing people in a visual way, as it is presented in the after 9/11 novels. These novels that I have tackled, and there are other novels I have dealt with in my PhD thesis, that show terrorism as visual after 9/11. And it is very traumatic when you see terrorism in front of you on TV. You will be traumatized, and this trauma may live with you after the event. Later we will also reveal what's the meaning of trauma. It emphasizes the idea of revolution and not war or going to war. This fiction before 9/11, the idea of revolution. So the spies, the character who are spies inside America or inside, for example, England, who are Russian, they try to disturb the stability of these countries in order to create terrorist attacks, okay? Because they try to create a conflict between these two states. The revolutionary ideas are represented as threatening, chaotic, creating instability. The Muslim character as a terrorist in contemporary fiction, fiction written after 9/11. The Jordanian writer Layla Halabi, she wrote Once in a Promised Land. This novel, in brief, it talks about a couple, a husband and a wife, who came, mainly the wife is born in America, her mother is American, her father is Jordanian, but the husband, he is from Jordan. So they lived in America a wealthy life. They have everything, a car, a house, they have bank accounts, they live more than Americans live luxuriously. But after 9/11, this state of luxury, happiness, is changed all over a sudden. And why it is changed? Because people started to look at them as outsiders, okay? Just not aliens, outsiders, non-belonging to what? To the American society. And she works in the bank as a staff, and people, secretaries and staff, they look at her as different. And this is what is the meaning of the other. These Arab and Muslim characters, they are seen by, you can say, if it is more broader sense, by Westerners, because of the color of their skin, as what? As outsiders. This is why their life turns upside down after the 9/11 attacks, and they are nearly reach the idea of separation and divorce. After the 9/11 attacks in 2001, a couple of secretaries at work seemed to be gossiping about Jassim, her husband, giving him dirty looks. At the bank where Salwa, the wife, works, a college boy begins flirting with her in an inappropriate way. When the towers fell in New York, these people are as stunned and appalled as everyone else, because they feel Jasmine and Salwa, they feel that they are more Americans than the American people because they lived in this country, they have everything from this country. So when they see the attacks, they were appalled, stunned. Okay, they were angry with what these hijackers have done. Just I leave Layla Halabi to go to. And here, just about the media and political administration, after the attacks, they played a role in creating the binary opposition between the West and East, between the Christians and Muslims, between the whites and non-whites, the division of the world into good and evil. So these outsiders, Salwa and Jasmine, they are seen as others, outsiders, as evil. And this is a kind of racialization of these different people in the American society. Another novel, Mohsen Hamid's The Reluctant Fundamentalist, published in 2007, is a Pakistani American, lived in America, and then he was based in London later on. He wrote this novel about a Pakistani American financial firm worker. This man changes. He's a young man, graduated from Princeton with an administration degree. He's very educated, he got a job, he has a car, he has a flat, he has bank account, he has money, he has everything from America. So he feels just like Salwa and Jasmine. He's more American than the American themselves. But after the attacks, or during when he saw the attacks on TV, the first moment, the first impression was that, which is strange, he was pleased when he sees the towers fall. But later on, because he falls in love with Erika, also an American girl, his view changes. And also the view of society changes towards this man who was more an American in his firm, in his work, than American themselves. Before the attacks, they treated him very well. After the attacks, they called him an Arab, though he's from Pakistan, not from the Arab homeland. And this is because of what? Because of his color of skin. One of the men says to changes fucking Arab, and the man later departed muttering a series of obscenities. This is in one of the parks when he wants to park his car. And the third novel is John Updike's Terrorist. This novel was hugely criticized by critics because for critics, Updike didn't show the terrorist as an other, as outsider, as an enemy. Why? Because the aim of Updike's depiction and revelation of the character of Ahmed, the 18 years old man, he is a hybrid man, Ahmed. His father is Egyptian, he was a student, comes to America, he has a couple, she is Irish, half American, and then Ahmed is born, a hybrid man. But Ahmed is also part of the American society, but he doesn't feel it. He feels that he is different, okay? He feels that he is different. Ahmed, the 18-year-old Arab-American young boy, is born of an Irish-American mother who worked as a nurse and an Egyptian father who is an exchange student. His father left the country, America, leaving the boy with his mom, and leaving the boy to the hands of a Yemeni sheikh, because Ahmed goes to the mosque to pray, and he meets this sheikh, and this sheikh begins to what? To imbibe, to fill the mind of Ahmed with what? With extremism, with radicalism, and with the sense of we have to do something against these people because they are white, they are different. And also Charlie is a Lebanese-American guy. Okay, so both the Sheikh and Charlie, they are, in origin, they are from the Arab homeland. And Ahmed is also seen as an Arab. So this Sheikh and this guy, Charlie, they influenced Ahmed, and they put a plan that he has to blow up the Lincoln Tunnel in America. Ahmed is working as a driver for a firm of furniture, and he put all the bombs inside this truck, his truck. But Jack Levy, he is a Jewish counselor in Ahmed's high school. He knows about this plan, and he goes with Ahmed in the same truck, and he convinces Ahmed to stop that. And during their going to the tunnel, Ahmed is changed by the talking of Jack, the Jewish man, and this is very very important turning point in the novel. Ahmed leaves extremism, leaves terrorism, and he didn't blow up the tunnel, which is very good. This is why John Updike is criticized, because Ahmed didn't what? He didn't blow up the tunnel. Ahmed must do something terrible, visual, just like the other fictions written after 9/11, so that people will say, okay, your novel is very famous because of the depiction of the visualization of the trauma after 9/11. And this is all I have for today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, وليد.
Thank you.
So I think we'll open the floor to questions before Jenny's paper. Anybody's got any?
Yeah, hi وليد.
Hi.
In talking about jihad,
Yeah.
you talked about personal struggle and the struggle for family and country.
Yeah.
You didn't talk about the struggle for faith, for Islam. Is that seen as a part of the protection of the faith and integrity of Islam as a part of jihad? And
It is.
So where does it fit in that hierarchy?
It is when I said that the greater jihad is the self fighting itself against the evil impulses and motivations inside the self. One of the evil, we can consider that, is the impurity of the self, the deviation of the self, not believing in faith, not believing in God. So purely it is mainly it is spiritual. This purgation of the self from what is evil, what is bad, what is wrong, this fight, this purgation is mainly spiritual. It is not material. And part of it is the purgation of what is impure concerning one's religion. So even for Christians, for Jewish people, they may fight themselves against certain things that prevent them from prayer, from fasting, for example. Yeah, I didn't mention that, because I thought that is taken for granted that it is spiritual purgation.
But the faith in terms of, so we've got the inner spiritual thing, but then you've got the things like, which we call heresy, which is a deviation from the faith, which, you know, in terms of the Crusades, the Christians went to save Jerusalem from the heresy of Islam as they saw it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of jihadist fighters now would see that's what they're doing in protecting the faith of Islam, not on a personal level, but on a national and international level.
Is it
kind of the lesser jihad, but actually about saving the faith rather than the person?
Yeah, who said that? This is the point. Are they the religious people, the heads of Islam, or people who are extremists, who are radicals? Have you seen, for example, Imam Sistani? He is the big head now in Iraq and the world for Muslims, one of them. Did he ask people to go to, for example, bomb or use violence or extremism against people? No, but we see such a conception led by extremists, by radicals, just like Bin Laden, for example, and the other, just like ISIS now. They want to purge Islam from Muslims. So what kind of ideology they have? That ISIS is now killing what? Muslims who are Muslims just like them. So this is a kind of crooked ideology about Islam. This is not Islam. This is a wrong version of what Islam calls for, which is we have to purge ourselves of what is evil inside us. This is good, because the benefit is for us. And we have, for the lesser jihad, we have to defend our souls, our families, our positions, our money. And this is legal in terms of legality, right? And this is the difference. We see these calls to kill people, to use violence, to protect the faith, they come from those radicals and extremists, not from rational Muslims. Yeah, this is what I believe.
And I mean, in much ways, the Crusades ended up killing more Christians than it ever. I mean, we want to imagine never even got there and killed hundreds of thousands of Christians on the way. That fundamentalism, well, it's fundamentalism which is about power. It's
more political.
It's hanging a religious concept or precept in a quest for power.
It is a mixture, John. It is a mixture between politics and faith. Just like, I don't know whether you accept it or not, the Bush administration after 9/11, they mixed between politics and faith. It was a holy war. But against who? They said that these people bring holy war to our land. But who are these people? Are they the moderate Muslims? Are they the normal Muslims? This is the sense. So they mix between politics and faith in order to reach a certain goal. For example, to go to Afghanistan. It is good to reach the radicals, okay, to exterminate them. But there are many victims there, just like in Iraq, and you know about it.
Does anybody? Yes.
You shared you chose three books which you talked about, and the first two, is my understanding, were from authors who had experiences and access to non-American culture, while John Updike, is he an American?
He's an American writer, novelist.
So he's American.
Yeah.
Do you see that back in the writing about these topics, whether it's beneficial to have that link? Because I think Halabi was Georgian.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure.
Pakistani.
Pakistan.
Yeah.
Do you see that back? How is it more insightful how they write about these topics? Does it matter where the author is coming from and the experiences and connections that the author has?
According to me, as I have read Updike's novel, as I have said, Updike is criticized. Why? Because Ahmed is not extremist enough. Ahmed is not violent enough. Ahmed did do anything radical enough, visualized. I mean, the execution of extremism and terrorism as it is in other novels, not in these. So Updike goes to the mentality of Ahmed, how he thinks, why he hates the materialism of America, why he hates these Americans who use consumerism, money and capitalism. While he is an American, he was born in America. But it is good to have different points of view from different writers coming from different origins and cultures. And this is why I'm interested in comparative literature, because they give us different conceptions about the mentality of the terrorist, how the West think of Arabs and Muslims, and about extremism and terrorism in general.
Okay, do we have any more questions for Waleed? Okay, well, I have one question, if that's all right. So just to go back to the issue of jihad.
Yeah.
So we see in the media, obviously now, jihad and terrorism have become almost interchangeable as terms, that the jihad is attributed to terrorism all the time. Do we see that at all happening pre 9/11? So are authors or do the media attribute the term jihad to terrorism?
I haven't passed by fiction or novels dealing with jihad as terrorism before 9/11.
Okay.
But the major novels, as I have stated, The Demons and The Secret Agent, they deal with non-jihadi, we can say, non-jihadi extremism or terrorism. The threat the violence, the radicalism that comes from the West itself, inside the West.
Right.
Not the threat and violence that comes to the West from the East, which is covered by the version of Islam. So we see that the Russians are mainly who are extremists in these fictions, in these novels.
Yeah.
But the concentration comes after 9/11.
And that's where we see jihad
We see difference.
as a term.
Jihad becomes a holy war.
Yeah.
Jihad becomes a holy war. Yeah. And this is not the meaning. It is a holy war against oneself, as the purgation, as I told John.
Yeah.
To keep the faith inside you. Okay? To keep the faith inside you, and from a social point of view, to protect yourself, the family, society, the land in which you live. And this is a right, a human right. It's not only given by God or by religion.
Yeah.
It is just something we know from our birth. You have to defend your own country against the opponents, the enemies, if they come to invade you.
So effectively it has a very different meaning to
It has a very different
stuff.
meaning.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has a very different meaning. Yeah.
Okay, well, if you'd just like to join me in thanking وليد again. And now we're going